Here's the 30-second lesson on what legends know. Never practice nunchucks in a crowded room. Never eat chole before a road trip. Always take your shirt off before you iron it. Don't take a call near a swimming pool. And don't forget, saving is not investing. Legends don't just save, they invest in mutual funds. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Far across the low hills running to the line of control, the Tiranga had been raised over the police station and the magistrate's office. The rebels had no weapon other than their ironic sensibility. Early in 1973, you see, a boat carrying a wedding party across the Punch River from the village of Dadyal had capsized, killing 50 people. Ever since the raising of the Mangla Dam, residents had to give up riding horse carts to the nearest market town, Mirpur, and make the dangerous journey over the waters instead. The bridge that had never been built for them was one broken promise too many. The rebellion was, of course, extinguished, but only after Pakistan Army Special Forces dramatically parachuted in, sociologist Roger Ballard later recorded. There was, after all, no other way to get to Dadyal. Last week, Pakistan-occupied Kashmir saw massive protests against economic hardship and poor administration. Facing stone-throwing mobs, central paramilitary forces opened fire near the regional capital, Muzaffarabad, killing at least 3. The government hastily moved to still the escalating violence with an $83 million handout for grain and electricity, conceding the key demands of the traders' organizations which spearheaded the protests. The protests are good news for India, but not, as some excited social media commentary has claimed, because rebellion against Pakistan is looming across the LOC. Even before 1947, the people of the region Pakistan now calls Azad Kashmir shared little bar the name with Kashmiris. Not language, not ethnicity, not politics. Even 5 years ago, the largest protests in the region had to do with India and the crisis in Kashmir. In 2008, tens of thousands of protesters sought to march across the line of control, leading to a bloody showdown. And following the end of Kashmir's special status, pro-independence demonstrators again sought to breach the de facto border. This time though, the protests are all about Pakistan-occupied Kashmir's fraught relationship with their ethnic Punjabi-dominated country, not the conflict over Kashmir. For all practical purposes, the LOC has become a border that exists not just as a line on a map, but in the political imagination of people. That creates space for future peacemaking. From the outset, democracy struggled to put roots down in the arid, unwelcoming soil of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Led by the London-educated lawyer Ibrahim Khan, the regions of Mirpur and Poonch rebelled against the authority of Maharaja Hari Singh in the summer of 1947. Khan's army of demobilized Indian Army and Indian National Army soldiers brushed aside the Maharaja's soldiers and set up an interim administration. 2 years later, though, breakaway National Conference leader Chaudhry Ghulam Abbas arrived in Pakistan and asserted his power. Forced out of office in 1950, Khan had the support of the powerful Sudhan clans of the Mirpur region. Large-scale violence broke out, political scientists Raja Kaiser Ahmad and Javed Hayat have written, with the Pakistan Army's 12th Division battling men who only months before had been fighting against India. Abbas, Ahmad and Hayat Wright was a close associate of Pakistan's founding patriarch Muhammad Ali Jinnah. He opposed, I quote, the establishment of a democratic system because he believed that election politics would divert the attention of leaders, parties and people away from the liberation movement. Khan, on the other hand, demanded that Pakistan-occupied Kashmir be able to elect its own representatives and have its own democratic life. Fighting flared up again in 1955 and police drafted in from Punjab exchanged fire with Sudhan militia in Rawalakot, Palandri and Baral. The rebels were subjected to artillery fire, Homes were dynamited and violence spread dramatically, historian Christopher Snedden has recorded in a granular political study of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Leaders of the rebellion were dragged through the streets, sometimes humiliated by being forced to, I quote, bark like dogs. Some ended up in military-run prisons. Like in India, which was battling a very similar crisis after the breakdown of the relationship between Kashmir's Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammad Abdullah and Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, the Pakistani government set up what was for all practical purposes a police state. The end of the rebellion in 1956 and General Ayub Khan's military coup of 1958 saw Islamabad dynamiting the last elements of democratic rule in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Islamabad also put in power a constitutional system that gave it supreme authority by limiting Pakistan-occupied Kashmir's powers on the grounds that it could not be treated as just another state while it remained a disputed territory. Ethnicity and economics would work to challenge the hegemony Islamabad desperately held on to. For 5 millennia, ethnic Mirpuris had crewed the Indus boats that linked Punjab with Karachi, their sons sent off to earn livelihoods the harsh mountain soil could not yield. From the 1880s, Mirpuris also began working on the steamships that had arrived in the Indian Ocean and soon set up the kernels of diasporic communities in the United Kingdom and Australia. Labourers from Mirpur worked in World War II munitions factories and helped rebuild the country's devastated cities and industries. Within a decade of independence, Pakistan-occupied Kashmir began going global. There is hardly a bullock cart or a bicycle to be seen, Roger Ballard noted. Instead, cars and swarms of Japanese motorcycles filled the roads. There were Western-style hotels and supermarkets selling cornflakes and ketchup. Every hamlet, Ballard noted, seems to boast 3, 4 and even 5-storied buildings rearing into the sky. Lacking an industrial or agrarian base though, the tidal wave of remittance earnings sent home by the diaspora ended up invested in land. A strange case of capital-rich underdevelopment, Ballard observed. The Mangla Dam, built from 1961 to 1965 after the signing of the Indus Water Treaty with India, had harvested the waters of the Indus for agriculture and industry elsewhere in Pakistan. But it brought little but submergence to Pakistan-occupied Kashmir itself. The province received an insignificant share in the project's revenues. The rehabilitation of local residents was a tortured, endless project. Like many newly affluent communities, the residents of Mirpur responded by sharpening ethnic boundaries. In cities like London and Manchester, stickers proclaiming their Kashmiri identity began to be visible in the 1970s, even though the Mirpuris spoke a different language and had few ties of kinship to Kashmir on the Indian side of the line of control. Though Mirpuri closely resembles Potohari, which is spoken on the other side of the Jhelum River in Punjab, Kashmiri-ness became a label to assert national distinctiveness. For many Mirpuris, participation in the anti-India Kashmiri movement thus became a means to at once assert distance from Punjabi-dominated Pakistan. Even though the Mirpuri diaspora played an important role in funding Kashmir terrorist groups like the National Liberation Front, contributing, for example, an estimated £6,000 for the 1983 kidnapping and assassination of Indian diplomat Ravindra Matre, its role on the front lines of violence was very limited. This would change when Islamist organizations like the Hizbul Mujahideen, Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed were introduced to Pakistan-occupied Kashmir after 1990 by the Inter-Services Intelligence Directorate. The jihad in Kashmir was a tool for the Inter-Services Intelligence to harry India, but also to stamp out Mirpuri distinctiveness or nationalism, if you like. Long ruled by Islamabad and the military through the medium of the Muslim Conference Party, Pakistan-occupied Kashmir has gradually been embedding itself in Pakistan's political life. Though it lasted only 2 years before General Muhammad Zia-ul Haq seized power, The Pakistan People's Party established a provincial coalition government in 1975. Former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif also succeeded in making his faction of the Pakistan Muslim League a significant force from 1999 onwards. And former Prime Minister Imran Khan's Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf party also established a big presence. For Mirpuris, Pakistani politics and politicians became instruments to pursue the autonomy and identity that they had long sought. This doesn't mean, of course, that Islamabad's leverage has ended. General Pervez Musharraf's military government famously installed Major General Sardar Muhammad Anwar Khan as President of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir in 2001, bypassing requirements for candidates to have retired from public office at least 2 years before taking office. And Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf politician Chaudhry Anwar ul Haq was elected Prime Minister unopposed last year after dumping his party under pressure from the army. Last week's protests, however, make clear that local issues are coming to dominate the region's political life. Residents are no longer willing to see their interests, economic and social, sacrificed for someone else's cause. There are good reasons for this. Even though Pakistan-occupied Kashmir generates over a fifth of Pakistan's hydroelectricity, behind only Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, which produces half, it suffers from chronic blackouts. Tariffs paid to other provinces for the use of their water were until recently denied to the region on the grounds that it was not legally a full province. Following constitutional amendments brought about in 2018 under Nawaz Sharif, analyst Jalaluddin Mughal notes, Pakistan-occupied Kashmir has become close to becoming just another province of Pakistan, just as the Union Territory of Jammu Kashmir has become in India. Ladakh, like the separate region of Gilgit, is also centrally ruled. For the first time since 1947, there is now an institutional symmetry to the two parts of Maharaja Hari Singh's Kashmir. All that remains to be done is for the two nations to sign a paper accepting reality. I'm Praveen Swami and I'm National Security Editor of ThePrint. Thank you for watching Security Code.